beyond belief in the wake of Sandy. While covering this story, I interviewed a man named Albert from Staten Island. Albert and his fiancée and their beloved cat experienced firsthand the powerfully devastating force that was Sandy. You see, during the storm, the rise of the water was so fierce and so quick that before they fully realized just how severe the storm actually was, they were overtaken by what he described as a wall of water so powerful that it entered through the doors of his house, and after knocking them over, it literally sucked them out into the streets, where they were confronted with hyperthermic water over 5 feet high, if you can imagine, while he saw power lines and transformers blowing all over the place. Thankfully, they all survived this ordeal, but to say that it was harrowing would be a grave understatement. And then at the end of the interview, I asked him, Albert, what has it meant to you have all these strangers coming from places near and far, such as people with MDS, to the aid of a total stranger like yourself and your friends? And this is what he said. He said, man, it's just awesome. Just so awesome. You know, they just come in here and they don't complain. They just fix it. They just come in and simply do the work. And man, they know what they are doing. You can't come into a situation like this and go right to work if you have not prepared and are not ready for something like this. Man, you could tell that they've been through it and they knew exactly what they were doing. He might not have known it, you guys, but what profound words he spoke to me that day. You see, if we want to aspire to be the kind of people who, in a moment's notice, are ready and prepared to do the work of God, and of course, by that I mean the work of love, then we must come pre-dirty. Dirty from having the fine dust of wet and moldy falling sheetrock on our heads. Dirty from having extended our weathered and soiled palms to lift up those who've been washed away by the storm that life often can be. See, our country and we are so preoccupied with new and fresh and everything all just perfectly shrunk-wrapped. But we get a small cut, right? And we want to bandage it up. We want to be perfect and unmarked. We get a pimple, you want to cover it up. You're having a bad face day, put on makeup. I don't, but I have a bad face day all the time. You have bad hair day, you put on a hat. See, now I'm not saying that it's bad and wanting to be well presented, right? But my point is this, that as a society, we often take this desire for perfection to extremes, don't we? The trouble is, this extreme cultural obsession with living a clean and perfect and sterile life hinders us in preparing us to do the work of God when calamity strikes and our neighbors need our help. You see, we just simply won't be ready. We won't have had the experience of knowing the deep despair of having been dragged through the mud in the darkness of the night and then the powerful release of being pulled back out into the beautiful light of grace. You see, I have friends from many walks of life, and the thing that I've come to understand is this, that more than anything, with perhaps the exception of love, what people are starved for most is authenticity or genuineness. I work with teens a lot, and I know that that's the thing that they tell me that they want the most. Can you just be real, man? The world doesn't need us to put on our perfect brave faces. Rather, they need to be able to look into our eyes and know that we are flawed and we are broken like them, because the truth is, you guys, if we live long enough, this world will break all of us to some degree. You know this is true. Authenticity. On this, the Bible says that the world will know that we are followers of Christ from our fruit. I don't really know what that means, but I think it's true. But I think the world should also know that we are followers of Christ from our stench, from our worn and tethered bodies, from our visibly exhausted and hunched posture, from having freshly completed the exhausting work of love, the work of our Christ. People should be able to identify and smell us coming from a mile away and not only upon close examination. I know that sounds horrible, but I think they should be able to. So what does God at work beyond belief look like? Looks a little like this. Like a humble and exhausted and dirt-covered woman or a guy from Lancaster County, who from a distance conveys a message that says, yes, I am broken, and I've been to where you are right now, and I know how it's like. So I'm prepared and ready to do the work that love demands of me. And lastly, we need to be humble enough to acknowledge that God at work doesn't necessarily mean that God only works through us Christians or even us Mennonites alone. I know that's weird to say at a Christian school. I think it's true. My experience while covering Sandy was clear evidence that the capacity and expression of love isn't the sole property of any one of us or those who only subscribe to my faith tradition. I met a woman named Donna who is a member of a motorcycle gang who since day one of the storm stopped everything that she was doing and helped to set up a soup kitchen to feed the homeless and the desperate and those who came to volunteer. I saw a group of women walking up and down the street, handing out sandwiches and water to all the volunteers and thanking them for coming to their neighborhood to help out. I saw a group of firefighters, you saw them here today also, who were helping to clean the house of their buddy who was trapped on the roof of his house and had to be airlifted out to safety. This picture made it all over the news. Here's the thing. I didn't know, I didn't even ask, nor did I even really care what their faith traditions were at that time, if they even had any. All I knew was that they were the hands and the feet of our Christ, who told us that the greatest thing that is demanded of us is to love one another. You see, the transforming power of love is not the property of any one of us, but rather it can be claimed by anyone who practices it. Be they Muslim, be they Christian, a Jew, a Buddhist, or a Hindu, or even an atheist. If you want to talk about God at work beyond belief, then we need to believe that God is at work beyond our own belief. This is important, so I'm going to say it again. See, if we want to talk about God working beyond belief, then we need to believe that God is at work beyond just our own belief. Why is this so important? How often have we fought and killed one another in the name of our gods? I say, just far too many. You see, God is bigger than the sum of our own religious divisions. And once we come to terms with that, like the Bible says, we can maybe perhaps then move mountains together. Or, at the very least, we can rebuild the broken home of a distant neighbor after a devastating storm. Now, as I start this next part of my talk, let me get this thing ready for you.